14th century Italy, a beautiful time to be there, the time of Renaissance, with creative people roaming all around. So, when I say Renaissance, what does come to your mind? What does it mean? Is it related to art? I know it means rebirth, it's French for rebirth, but is it related to literature? Is it a new beginning? What is it? Well, this is the question that we will answer by the end of this conversation. Never before or since had there been such a coming together of art, science, and philosophy. Well, this is Renaissance. We will understand how is it so. It all begins with a beautiful city in a beautiful country, Florence, Italy. Florence was a wealthy city back in 1350s. It had all kinds of lavish lives. People were looking to make their lives simple. They had discovered that life can be easy. It is not meant to be hard. It can be easy. So since they had money, they hired people like artisans, craftsmen, inventors, artists who could make their life aesthetically and technically easier. Thus, a horde of creative people came into Florence. Now, my favorite one is here. Can you recognize this man? Yes, that's right. It's Leonardo da Vinci, the Renaissance man. He was a painter, a draughtsman, an engineer, a scientist, a theorist, a sculptor, and an architect. A brilliant, brilliant man, a very creative indeed. Well, this was one of them who roamed around Florence, Italy during the Renaissance. Next one here is this man. Can you recognize him? I bet you can. That's Michelangelo, a painter, a sculptor, and an architect. A fine man, indeed. Now, this one here, that's William Shakespeare, quite right. He was an English playwright, a poet, an actor. Another one of my favorites. Now we have Christopher Columbus here. I want to ask you that. This is Christopher Columbus, an explorer and a navigator. Well, who are these people? Can you understand why did I show you that? Yes, these are the people that were alive during the Renaissance. These are that enabled Renaissance. These are the people who enabled Renaissance. At least a few of them. There are several others, but these are my favorites. They are the people who enabled Renaissance. They are the creative minds of their time. They made artworks, they invented things, they discovered places, they discovered things, they created literature. This was how Renaissance came into existence. This was how idea propagated. So no more boring facts. I'll tell you just three stories. Three stories that changed the world as we see it today. Art. First of all, our story is about art. How did art change? Before Renaissance, during the medieval times, the art was focused on the religious stuff, the clerical stuff. The main theme was God and religion. We can see the Christian theme here. The next medieval picture that it shows a praying woman, and another example of medieval art. Well, these all saw a contrasting change during the Renaissance when Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa. The theme of artwork came from something as complicated as religion or God to something as simple as a human. This also meant individualistic approach. We see that from God, the subject of the artworks and literature and etc. became a human. Another one of the examples is David by Michelangelo, a fine example of portraying humans in artworks. Another subject is human. Although I know David is a character from biblical stories, Here is a representation of human courage. Again, the subject is a human. We see the subject changing from God and religion to humans. The creation of Adam, another picture by Michelangelo. What could scream the subject here rather than human? This is the creation of Adam, the first human to be considered by the Bible. Although a biblical story, but still the subject here is human. Changing of the subject from God to human continues. Then the same change was seen in literature. Before, the literature or the drama actually plays were more clerical in nature. They were performed in churches and on the biblical stories, more on the virtues and the vices of the seven sins. But then it saw a contrasting change. The subject here changed to something more relatable themes to humans like love, revenge, suffering, and other humanistic values. Subject thus changing from clerical to humans, individualistic approach finding its way. The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe, another piece portraying the human ambition. This again, the subject here is human. It is a story about Dr. Faustus who was so ambitious about getting knowledge and that he made a deal with the devil and met his tragical end, of course. But still, the subject or the major character here was human. We see a change in fashion as well. The medieval times had a different kind of fashion. The Renaissance style was different. The men had capes behind on the backs. The cape was lost in Renaissance time. Women were more simply dressed. Now in Renaissance, the attire had more jewelries and more things attached to it. A fine man of that he dressed like in Renaissance, and a woman that dressed like what women dressed like in Renaissance or during the Renaissance period. It saw a contrasting change from medieval times as well. Next, the story of inventions. The second thing that changed the world were inventions. Of course, we wouldn't be able to imagine today's world without books, would we? Well, it is possible because of the Gutenberg printing press. It revolutionized the way of mass communication. To propagate our ideas, all we had to do is write and get it printed. As simple as that. Well, it wasn't as simple back then. Before the invention of printing press, people had to rewrite by their hand to make copies of something. But now it was easier as Gutenberg had invented the printing press. This is the depiction of printing press going on. The first Gutenberg printing press, actually, it's a sketch of that made later. Well, as far as humans are concerned and inventions, we have to make something related to weapons, and we came up with musket. It is said that either Leonardo da Vinci or a French gunsmith, Le Bourgeois, designed this musket. Well, whoever did it wouldn't come for the credit now. Not a proud invention, I must say. Then, can you guess this? What is this? Yeah, right. Those are glasses, looking glasses. That's spectacles that we use today. It looked like this back in those days. We have come a long way, indeed. Can you imagine how people discovered it? Like, why would they think that we need glasses? And who would have come up with something like this, that something certain shape and a certain power or something that could magnify things? Creative people thought of that. Back when we haven't even discovered flying, we had discovered falling, and without breaking ourselves. Yes, this is a design of a parachute. Although it did not come into existence back then, but still someone thought of it. It is an unfinished design, of course. Next, one of the unfinished designs by Leonardo da Vinci. If you think Wright brothers designed a flying machine, then I think you are not right. It was Leonardo da Vinci who actually discovered flying. Although he did not invent a machine that could fly, he did design it. He had an idea of something that could fly. At least he thought of it. Back in 14th century, it was a miracle. Leonardo also thought of how could humans fly. Like he saw a majestic eagle flying in the sky. I'll tell you a story about that later. A majestic eagle flying in the sky, and he thought, if eagles can fly, if something as heavy as that, why can't humans? So he designed a wing-like structure. Again, an unfinished design. The model of that unfinished design can be seen in the Vatican City Museum. If you ever get a chance, then do visit that. So the story is about Leonardo da Vinci. It is noted somewhere that while in his infancy, while he was a kid, eagle or vulture soared above his cradle, and that's what inspired him to fly. Although he did not fly, I know that, but still he thought of it. Creativity at its peak. The next thing that changed during Renaissance, the most important one, is thought. When this changes, everything else does. People began looking at things in a new way. Creativity found its place. When we look at something from a different angle, we find a new approach. Creativity takes place. Now, since there's acceptance of creativity, that there's acceptance of individuality. If everyone else is doing it, it's not creative, right? It's, if you want to think out of the box, you have to be one of a kind, and that's individualism. This was welcomed with a warm heart during Renaissance. Differences were welcomed with an open heart. Before that, the people were more interested in making a condensed social society where people work for the benefit of society. It still happened, but we also were now considering individuals as an entity. Now, the most important thing that we still have today that's a gift of Renaissance is rationalism. The questioning power that we have. Why? How? When? Where? How could it be? Thinking about God, does he exist? How could he? What is it? How do we know he does? Logical thinking became a trend, a gift of Renaissance indeed. So what are the gifts of Renaissance, would you say? For me, those are artworks, literature pieces, inventions, certainly, change in thinking. Several important changes took place. Now that we have done this, I think you might be able to answer a question now. What is Renaissance? What does it mean? It is fair to say that it means changing of mindset that was showed through art, literature, and creativity and inventions. It was the it was the rebirth of classical thinking, the Roman and the Greek thinking. It was back in Roman period or Greek period, there were creative people that was accepted all around Europe and all around Greek and Romans. But still, there wasn't a congestion of art, literature, and science together. So now I think this statement makes more sense. Never before or since had there been such a coming together of art, science, and philosophy. I guess you understand it now. Well, an interesting thing. Did you know that in 10th century, the left-handed people, the people who write with left hand, were considered to be the incarnation of devil? Well, that changed during the Renaissance too. No, the people were not considered to be devils if they wrote with left hand now. Gift of Renaissance. If you are left-handed, it's good that you are born this century and not in 10th century. Fun question. Among these big names, who is your favorite? Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, William Shakespeare, or Christopher Columbus? If you have any other suggestion, please go ahead. Thank you.